Please, Deputy Catherine Connolly.
Agus a híisi banim makeshle ar policy neodrukta, policy a ligdún siakon a all an gorla, slondala, policy a ligdún mass a hihru I mass tira an down, policy a ligdún a vet margoch sonna sirsha. Policy a ligdún a vet I mass tira a will winning aku asan o hiv ar quid unracus day. Taoiseach, my question relates to our neutrality. Your comments, the comments of the Taoiseach, the Minister for Defence, and various well-placed articles that tell us it's time to get rid of our policy of neutrality. I stand here today without any hesitation in saying I'm absolutely appalled by the comments and I'm worried by the comments. The policy of neutrality is not a passive policy, it's a very active policy. One of your predecessors, which has already been quoted by yourself, ironically in an article written by a Russian on the background to the Non-Proliferation Treaty, says it was not only the persistent skill and persuasiveness of Irish diplomacy, but its strong motivation that taken together achieved the result recorded in these pages. That was the effort over numerous years by Frank Egan, almost a single voice, with the help of good public servants, that eventually led many years later to the Non-Proliferation Treaty in '68. Neutrality has been under threat by every single representative of the establishment for a long time. It happened in relation to the Nice Treaty, whom we had to vote twice, and then a declaration was made in Seville. It happened in relation to Lisbon, where we had to vote twice, and all of the arguments that we made then came through, and we eventually got a declaration and protocols. Fast forward to now, and this in the middle of a crisis where we should be using all our effort to help the Ukrainian people, with whom I stand in solidarity. We are being deflected by various voices, powerful voices, that infantilize and demonize people and TDs who dare to speak out. They're telling us we should grow up, that we should be a voice for war and more death. And I fundamentally object to that and to the pressure being put on that we would all speak from the same voice. I will not. That's not what I was elected to do, while still standing in solidarity with the Ukrainian people and doing everything possible to help them. But where is our voice for the diplomacy that should be taking place? You seems to be lost on ye that you're meeting in Versailles, and the last time an agreement was made in Versailles, it will lead to a Second World War. I would ask that you confirm here today, in my last 2 seconds, that you have no intention of getting rid of our policy of neutrality.
Thank you, Deputy Taoiseach.
First of all, I'm surprised that you said that you seem to quote me as saying that I wanted to get rid of neutrality. I never...
Sorry if I'm wrong.
Sorry?
I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm delighted.
Well, you are wrong, and I think you know you're wrong. And you said it, but it didn't stop you saying it, which I think is disingenuous way to behave. Because I, yesterday in the House, spoke on this. I referenced Frank Aiken, and I referenced our policy of our proactive role in nuclear non-proliferation, and the role of Fianna Fáil's, the late Frank Aiken, in terms of the heroic work that he did, and how that would impact on any debate around military neutrality. Our neutrality is a military neutrality insofar as we're not members of any defence alliance. It's up to other countries if they want to volunteer to be part of a defensive alliance, which is what NATO is. And from the Irish perspective, we stayed outside any military bloc. In the context of the Nice referendum, we actually inserted into the Constitution a provision which means we cannot join European defence, a European Defence Pact, without a referendum, a constitutional referendum. We also have successively over the years agreed a triple lock mechanism, which in terms of the participation of Irish troops in any mission has to be under the auspices of a UN resolution, approval by government and approval by the Oireachtas. So the point I'm making, however, we shouldn't deny people an opportunity, given what's happened in the war and given the appalling imperialist a war of atrocities on the people of Ukraine, undertaken by Russia alone, it would be, people are questioning things, people are reflecting. That's legitimate in a democracy. And I suggested yesterday that I don't believe we should, I'm not diverting anybody because I didn't raise these issues. They were raised on the left by Deputy Murphy's and Deputy Barry consistently over the last 3 or 4 weeks. They've been raising this issue about NATO, and they were blaming NATO for the war before the war started. They were blaming NATO. They called NATO the warmongers. I'm saying, no, right now we should concentrate on the humanitarian crisis in Ukraine. We should concentrate on using everything to get the war ended and to stop the appalling humanitarian crisis that's unfolding. And this morning, again, in the discussions that are underway about humanitarian corridors, for example, I think we need to get humanitarian assistance into the cities that are under bombardment, because we're hearing children dying from dehydration. We saw on the news last evening, families not having access to proper food and so on. That should be our immediate priority. And I suggested for potential that a citizens' assembly, well after this, could be used as a meaningful way of having an informed reflection. And that would include Ireland's unique role in nuclear non-proliferation, and also our unique role as peacekeepers, not unique, sorry, but one that's been consistent factor in our independent foreign policy that we've pursued, and which has, I think, stood us well down through the years.
Deputy Connolly, please.
I'm not quite clear which side of the mouth you're speaking out of, honestly. If you're confirming today that you're not in favour of changing our policy of neutrality, I welcome that, and I'd apologise if I misinterpret anything that was attributed to you. So let me say that first. Let me say, in relation to the people have spoken repeatedly, most recently in the research that was done by Amárach, and overwhelmingly they're saying, yes, stand by Ukraine, help them in every possible way with humanitarian help, but retain our neutrality, not in a passive negative way, but in the most positive way for peace in the world. That's what they're saying to us, and that's what they've always said prior to Nice, prior to Lisbon. And I'm asking you today to confirm that, and you seem to have confirmed that. Whether the Citizens' Assembly is the way to go, I'm open to that, I don't mind. But what I want today is confirmation, which you appear now to have given. And the commentary that's going on in all of the media, in a biased way, as if that we're children when we stand up, and bold children at that, and demonising us is not helpful to democracy, and is certainly not democracy, because at this point we need people to reflect, like Frank Egan reflected, even though he made it clear he was for democracy and Western powers. A period of reflection and a period of thinking, how do we use our voice to the best way possible to promote peace and diplomacy, and reflect on Versailles when you're there. Thank you.
It's interesting when you look at our history of neutrality, that De Valera, who's regarded as the person who conceived it during World War II because of historical issues in terms of our relationship with the United Kingdom, nonetheless, during the League of Nations in the 30s, he was deeply disappointed that force wasn't used against Italy when it invaded Ethiopia. The point being, we can never be neutral against despots and dictators who invade a country unprovoked and in an unjustifiable way. We are not politically neutral. We are members of the European Union, and we've consistently pursued a policy within the context of the European Union on security and on defence. We joined in 1999 the Partnership for Peace with NATO in terms of interoperability with our military forces, that they would be able to operate with countries in NATO on either peacekeeping or peace enforcement measures. We've participated in battle groups that have not been deployed. We can always, as I said, the triple lock applies if we are ever to participate in any particular mission of that kind. And thirdly, in the context of the new world, and what I mean by the new world, cyber security, we're very vulnerable. And who came to our assistance when we had a savage cyber attack on our health services? Poland, United Kingdom, and countries within the European Union as well came to our assistance. So I think we have to acknowledge the world is changing from a security perspective, and there are vulnerabilities in Europe that we cannot be blind to either. And that's why I think we need, at a later time, a more informed debate and reflection on it. That's my point.
That concludes leaders' questions. Well over time, I'm afraid, today. We move